Check out UFC 100 in just a few hours. My prediction for the main event, Brock Lesnar by TKO in round 2. Later. Well, as I bask in the awesomeness of my UFC 100 predicting abilities, I need to make a small clarification. Apparently one of my rants has gotten me in hot water again. Last week in my comments, I had some people accuse me of taking Sting's character and the stuff that he said about Samoa Joe too seriously and confusing all this for real life. Well, to those people I have to say this. Go back and re-watch the promos in the hype video for Turning Point 2008. In that video, Sting was saying, this is about the young guys having no respect, and Joe and AJ were saying, this is about the veterans not wanting to lose their spotlight. This is about a bunch of middle-aged men who get paid through the mouth when they barely even show up. Are you telling me that's not supposed to be worked shoot? Please. This whole Main Event Mafia storyline from the very beginning has been about blurring the lines between work and shoot, taking real-life issues and bringing them to life on screen. This is the way Vince Russo writes TV. He's done this forever. Bottom line, Sting's on-screen character was raking Samoa Joe over the coals for doing exactly what Sting is doing in real life, and what Sting's character has been accused of doing on the TV show, by the way. When you blur fantasy and reality so much for so long, stuff like this is going to fall through the cracks from time to time. And a good writer knows how to anticipate that and use that to his advantage rather than having it work against him. Now hopefully that'll explain my point on that a little bit better. Anyway, Impact. Much better show this week. Not perfect, but a big step up from what they've been delivering lately. First of all, my favorite part of the show, and I'm sure this will come as no surprise to any of you, Sarah Stock versus cheerleader Melissa. Now that is what I'm talking about. Okay, now you guys know why I've been obsessing over these women for months and months. Great match. Possibly the best knockouts match this year so far. And in fact, yeah, it probably was. Best knockouts match this year so far. I think both women looked awesome, but Sarah Stock impressed the hell out of me, man. She was doing flips off the ropes, suicide dives, and that cool-ass cartwheel armbar takedown thing that I don't even know how to describe. Remember last week when I said that I was still waiting to be really impressed by Tara? Stuff like this is what I meant. But the coolest thing about this was the crowd. I mean, they booed Melissa at all the right points. They popped for Sarah's entrance. There were Sarita chants during the match. They were into the action from bell to bell. I mean, these women are getting over already, and they've only had one match. Just imagine what they're going to do next. My second favorite thing about Impact this week, wrestling. There was wrestling on the show finally. And I'm not talking about the handful of 2-minute matches that we usually get. For the first time in months, they had a wrestling match on the show that got more than 15 minutes. And recently, 15 minutes has been about as much wrestling as we get on the entire 2 hours. But they gave that 6-man tag match the time, they had a solid match, and they told a good story. You know why? Because they actually had the time to do it. I wasn't crazy about how the match was booked at certain points. AJ Styles getting eliminated by Kevin Nash in 2 minutes, that was bullshit. But they made Beer Money look really strong, and Robert Roode got put over like $1 million. The crowd got really behind him too. But the really important thing I noticed here is that this match illustrated just perfectly a point that I made a while back about matches involving the veterans versus the young guys. My point was that these matches were not nearly as good as they could be and should be because you always had the veterans controlling the pace of the match, which made them really slow and kind of crappy a lot of the time. And the matches would be much better if they were booked to let the young guys be the workhorses and carry the action. That way you get a faster-paced, more exciting match. I mean, the veterans can still go over, just let the young guys control the action until the finish. That's all it takes. And what did we see in this 6-man tag? AJ and Beer Money controlled the action at first, and the beginning of the match was very exciting. But as the young guys started getting eliminated, Nash and Steiner and Booker T started controlling the pace more and more, which made the action slow down more and more. I mean, it never got to the point where it was a bad match, but I'd say the first half was very good because of the young guys, and the second half was just good because of the veterans. Now the next item of interest this week is the main event, Sting and Kurt Angle in the 6 Sides of Steel. And TNA, I can't believe you're making me say this again, but you have got to get into the habit of announcing these things ahead of time. If you want to have a Bound for Glory main event rematch in the 6 Sides of Steel, no less, on Impact, you can't just announce it on that show. At the very least, you've got to announce this thing a week in advance, and you've got to promote it better than this. And basically, you had a very good opening segment that set up the match. TNA and West talked about it throughout the show, and that was it. And I can't believe I'm actually making an argument for more backstage segments on Impact, but that's what this thing needed. This needed backstage promos from Sting and Angle and steady hype throughout the entire show, but you didn't really have that. You didn't really make it look like a big deal after that first segment, and you only gave it 10 minutes. And when the match finally started, the announcers were talking about everything except what was happening in the ring. They weren't paying attention to the match at all. And why? Because they were engrossed in conversation with Jeff Jarrett. And that's a whole other problem. Okay, did Jeff Jarrett suddenly forget what side he's on? I mean, he sat down, and the first thing he did was tell Don West to shut the hell up because he was sick of Don West kissing all the heels' asses. But then Jeff Jarrett proceeded to kiss all the heels' asses instead. I mean, they started running down the pay-per-view card, and all he said was, oh, Kevin Nash is bringing his A-game. AJ Styles is going to have a fight on his hands. Beer Money have got their work cut out for them this Sunday. What the hell is this? Look, I know backstage Jeff Jarrett is really tight with Nash and Steiner, but when those cameras are rolling, Jeff Jarrett is on the side of the young guys, or at least he's supposed to be. At least he claims to be. But all he did during this whole segment was put over the veterans as the greatest thing since sliced bread. And you wonder why the young guys have had such a hard time getting over in this feud? It's because of stuff like this. Nevertheless, I did like the ending a lot, with Samoa Joe getting in the cage, and then Sting putting him in the death lock, and then the lights going off, and the Taz video playing, and the lights come back on, and Joe has Sting locked up all of a sudden. That was great. Of course, Mike TNA had to go and ruin it by talking over the whole thing like he always does, but that's what we've come to expect with this guy. Also, we have a new X Division champion. Definitely happy about that. Happy with Homicide having the belt now. It's something new, and I know the Suicide character isn't for everybody. And so I think this will be good. I wish they had a match in the pay-per-view, though. I mean, I think we've had like one X Division match on TV in the last month. And TNA, if you have enough space on your pay-per-view card for 2 tag team title matches, not to mention trash like Sharmell and Jenna Maraska, then you can find the time to have 1 X Division title match. And that's something else I need to cover here, this overloaded card for Victory Road. Right now, you've got 9 matches booked for this thing, and that's really going to start... That's really going to be pushing it for a 3-hour pay-per-view. I mean, personally, I'm concerned that we might have another situation like Destination X on our hands where you try to fit in so much stuff that none of the matches get the time they need to deliver and they end up not being pay-per-view quality. Now, if they put Sharmell and Maraska on the pre-show where it belongs, then they shouldn't have a problem. But if they try to fit all this stuff into 3 hours, then it may not work out that well. And speaking of Sharmell Maraska, that's the last thing I need to cover here. They had this absolutely horrible sit-down interview that I swear to God was like right out of the Jerry Springer show. And that video package that they aired before this thing just completely laid out plain as day how utterly pointless and uninteresting this feud is. Maraska gets invited into the Main Event Mafia by Kevin Nash, and Sharmell can't stand any woman beside herself getting any attention because she's an egocentric bitch. And that's it. That's the whole feud. And these 2 idiots are getting a spot on pay-per-view while the X Division champion is sitting on the bench doing nothing. Now, I'm pretty sure none of us are expecting Sharmell Maraska to last very long for obvious reasons, but still, this is absolutely unacceptable. And for several weeks, I was seriously considering boycotting Victory Road because this shit was on it. But the rest of the card does look pretty good, so check out Victory Road this Sunday. I'm going to have my trusty pillow handy with which to asphyxiate myself with Sharmell Maraska. Talk to you next week.